4 weeks on the job.
Wow.
They sent me by myself. It was like, yeah, you got to be a producer, you got to be an editor, you got to be a cameraman, you got to be the reporter, right?
Mhm.
And they had faith in me. And at that point, there was the time where I missed my deadline once, um, because I didn't prepare well enough, and I didn't want to say, hey, basically, the Wisconsin Badgers had practice that ran up close to the time that I was supposed to do my live hit. And what was unfortunate is I didn't feel like I could say, "Hey, it's going to be a tight call, so maybe we should push this down, to the B block or the C block." I just feel like I can't tell them, "Hey, I'm not able to do this," and I ended up missing my deadline because of that, because of my pride, and I had to take a step back. Like at that point, it's like, "Yo, are you ready for this? Are you going to be able to succeed in the broadcast industry? Like, is this for you? Either you're gonna fall flat on your face here, or you're gonna rise up to the occasion and do what the heck needs to be done."
Working in sports is something that I had an opportunity to do and I enjoyed it. At one point, I wanted to be an on air talent, and I shifted myself to being behind the scenes. However, my guest today is one of the best on air talents I know. I've had the honor and pleasure of meeting him in person at our National Association of Black Journalists convention. Today, Chris Williamson comes on to speak about his career. I got a chance to learn a lot from him and learn a lot about him, including how he was able to understand that the dream of playing basketball was not in the cards and then shift gears. He's also a former collegiate athlete. So I'm ready for you guys to hear this conversation because he's very raw, open, and honest about a lot of things, including the time when he missed the deadline. So, without giving away too much, ladies and gentlemen, here is my conversation with the one and only Chris Williamson. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on the line today, I have a superstar. Will he say that? Absolutely not, because he's a humble one. And if you go to NABJ, you'll see the way he carries himself. He's loved by everybody. And he is simply the one and only Mr. Chris Williamson. Chris, what's up, bro?
What's up, man? You give me too much credit there. I'm not a superstar yet. I'll just try to inspire and help people, through the lens of sports. But I appreciate the kind words.
Hey
Appreciate the
man,
kind words.
I appreciate you. Appreciate everything that you do and everything that you stand for, man. Just sitting here a lot, the beauty of social media is while you're in New York and I'm in Baltimore, I can still watch your content. I can still, support from afar. So I think it's really cool. It's not back in the day where people have to kind of send their friends tapes like, hey, check me out. It's simply just go on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. So I think that's pretty cool, man. So, like I said, I appreciate all that you're doing.
Thank you, man. And yeah, that's the like you said, that's the gift of technology and the generation that we're in. Our I guess the times that we're in, where we're able to be in two separate locations. Could be in LA, and I'm in New York, and could easily get my footage over, or you get your footage over to me, and we connect through that. So it's technology can be a pain, but it also can be a blessing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first and foremost, before we get into this, man, how you feeling? The day we're recording, you're the first person I've talked to outside of my household that we have a brand new president, and more importantly, well, maybe yeah, to me, more importantly, vice president. How you feeling with everything going on?
Honestly, man, there was a moment when after the inauguration, like the actual ceremony, and I think Biden and Harris were preparing to get into their cars, or maybe they're already in it. I just remember crouching down and, you know, tears started to well up, in my eyes because it just hit me how much we've dealt through, how much we've had to endure, with that white supremacist dude named Trump. And to see, order and normalcy, like a boring speech compared to, what Biden's predecessor gave, is a breath of fresh air, and obviously first black um, woman vice president, first woman vice president ever. To see her, take that oath, um, to know what that will do for so many women, but specifically so many black girls and young black women. It's amazing because when one day obviously want to have black black babies, and they'll be able to look at that and see somebody who was able to overcome so much, and now she's the second in command in the United States. Like, come on now. So it's a lot of relief, um, and joy at the same time.
Yeah, do you think obviously when President Barack Obama was sworn in, it was a big deal. But do you think that maybe we took it a little for granted considering we didn't come from such an extremist in law beforehand?
I think we took it for granted. I mean, I feel like we took it for granted in the sense, excuse me, we took it for granted in the sense that we did not um, energize and get out people to vote, after the presidential election, like when it came to the Senate seats and the House seats, we did not. It was like we took a back seat. It was like, all right, we voted, first black president in, came out in record numbers, and then the turnout, you know, for the senators and governors and all that was not where it needed to be. So I do think in that sense we took it for granted, but I also think, yeah, I do think we took it for granted because we would have been able to get a lot more done had there been more of a mobilization of young people, Black people, Latinos, in those elections. After the presidential election.
Yeah,
What do you
absolutely.
think?
When I sit back and think about it, I do think so. I think because as bad as Bush was, and I remember, so the first election I voted in was the Bush Kerry election. And it's like,
Good old
as
days.
right, and as bad as it was, if somebody told you they voted for Bush or somebody told you they voted for Kerry, you didn't look at them sideways, And I think when President Obama got in, you kind of looked at him sideways if you saw somebody say they didn't like Obama because you wonder, do you not like him because he's black or is it because it's politics? But then
Right.
when Trump got in, that's when it was like, and he's had that rhetoric of hatred. That was the problem. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, but I do think we did take it for granted. Like you said, you hit it right on the head. Just the local level, the Senate level,
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
shout out to these athletes who have really stepped up with whether it's the more than a vote campaigns, getting letting people know. If you listen to a lot of athletes on their platform, they let people know that it's not just about the presidency, it's about your local level. So I think
Yes.
that in a sense, I hate to say it was good, but also people like yourself who are, you're younger than me, y'all are coming up with
Yeah.
so much knowledge because now y'all would be able to, and granted, we don't have a 10-year gap, but I say,
Right.
y'all will be able to, like, when we have children, we can let them know the importance of every election. So that's what I'm excited about. And I'm excited to see that there is a black woman who's mixed with black and South Asian descent.
Right.
So
Yep.
that's going to be
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. It's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to a lot more progress and growth in the right direction. to say the least. And you got to shout out, not only these athletes, but specifically, the WNBA players, the Atlanta Dream, and what they did with the Raphael Warnock and getting Kelly Loeffler's behind out of there. Because the crazy thing, man, I didn't realize this until I read stories. Warnock was polling at 9% when they came out, the WNBA players came out with that campaign, when they came out with those shirts. He was 9%. And then for him to catapult all the way to win that seat,
Mhm.
it just remarkable. And Stacey Abrams, obviously, she's a goat.
Every day, man, I thank God for Black women, not just my wife, daughter, mother, and sisters and cousins, but just in general. You know, it's amazing.
It is. They are truly gifts from God. In my eyes, the most beautiful people on the on the planet.
Oh yes,
They just don't
sir.
get enough respect,
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
But man, so let's talk about your career. When did you know sports was something that you wanted to do? Was it early as a child, or when did you realize like you wanted to pursue sports journalism?
Knew I wanted to. I was always like a sports fanatic growing up, and I think that's from my father because he's a big sports guy. Played at Harvard as a football player. I think he was all Ivy, but yeah, I was always into sports. Growing up, playing basketball, football, soccer, baseball, you name it, all the sports. But I never really thought about sports journalism until I got cut from my JV team uh, my sophomore year of high school for basketball. And that up until that point, Brian, I had exhausted all the efforts I could, all the resources that my parents blessed me with, whether it's training or going to basketball camps,
Mhm.
and nothing came of it. It was clearly God was sending me a sign that you're not gonna be Michael Jordan. You're not gonna be in the NBA. Hell, you can't even make high school JV team. So that's when I knew that basketball was not for me, but I wanted to stay connected to the game. So I said, well, I might as well talk about it. Might as well write about it. And that's where my whole joy and uh, that's where my whole joy and thirst for sports journalism came in. I was, all right, if I'm not going to play, I'm at least stay connected to it. And that's when I just went into, tunnel vision, seeing what the best schools were as far as college for sports journalism and communications, and then I got involved with my high school newspaper, and I did some stuff on TV. Well, not on TV, but the what is it, like the news in high school, the morning announcements or something. Uh, and from there, yeah, the rest is history as far as my passion for sports journalism. So, and me failing, at pursuing my dream, realizing the dream of becoming an NBA basketball player, I realized another one. So everything happens for a reason, man.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Now, you you said sophomore year,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
see
sophomore year.
it's not going to happen. Who did you start studying? Like, were you studying, and were there any particular writers and broadcasters that you started studying before you started really looking in, or I should say, while you started looking into schools?
I think I always loved, Stuart Scott and his delivery and the presence and the aura that he brought to all his shows, whether it was in studio or, reporting. And then you got Jay Harris. Yeah, Bob Costas was somebody I loved, growing up watching him, call the finals with the Bulls and the Jazz in Michael Jordan's last year. So I was always a big Bob Costas fan, and he just happened to go to Syracuse, the place that I ended up going to college as well. And Mike Tirico was another one. Um, I think Brian Gumble. Yeah, Brian Gumble. You have Jim Brown or James Brown, I should say, CBS, um, NFL. those are the people that really stood out to me as
Mhm.
far as broadcasters and journalists, and then Tom Rinaldi was a late one. That was after I had realized I wanted to pursue sports journalism, but there were some people beforehand that I could not get enough of. Um, I think Mike Patrick, those people are like watching ACC games, Duke, UNC, Duke, Maryland. There were a lot that I enjoyed. Oh, Vern Lundquist. Yeah,
Okay.
Vern Lundquist was another one. With CBS, I couldn't get enough of you know the SEC on CBS. He was great. Just yeah, nothing more can be said about that. Fred Musburger, before I found out about you know his questionable ways. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, so there were a lot. There were a lot.
Are you planning a huge celebration and perhaps you need some balloons to make your event look nice? Well, I have the perfect place for you, and that's Symphony of Balloons. Symphony of Balloons will do all events, including baby showers, weddings, birthday parties, or that special anniversary. Contact them today at 410-802-1531 or email them at symphonyofballoons@gmail.com and tell them Brian H. Waters sent you. Now, are you a sports gamer or were
I
you?
used to be I used to be a sports gamer.
Did
Uh,
you practice your craft while playing? Like, if you would say you was playing Madden or 2K or NBA Live, where did you, work on like trying to be like that broadcaster for your own games, or did you not dip into that at all?
nah, nah, I no. What I did, man, I would be so into the games that if I was losing, I would unplug it and be like, "Yo, we gonna start over." Like that's how I was. I was a sore loser when it came to that. But as far as broadcasting my games that I played, no, I didn't get into that because I was just so into being a player, being the user
Got you.
on these different games. But yeah, I used to be hardcore into video games. Like that's what I did every Saturday, just playing for hours.
You don't play no more?
No, I grew out of it. It's
Okay.
funny. Yeah, I don't have the same love for it or thirst when a game's coming out. It was NBA 2K 21 or whatever, um, or NFL or Madden. Like, okay, cool. But yeah, I've just grown out of that passion. Like it's no longer there. And plus, I don't have any. I haven't had a gaming system, geez, since really since high school. Like
Oh wow.
I didn't take any gaming system with me to college. Yeah, like I think in the middle towards the end of my high school tenure, that's when like I started to really step away and lose interest in video games. But NBA Live, Madden, NCAA, March Madness, and football. Those were like all my favorites. Uh, yeah, NBA 2K. I know they always had better graphics, but I don't know why I didn't get it. I think it's because we had like a PS2, so maybe that was why.
I,
But yeah,
I
you
I
big
wish live would have stayed in the race because I still play games. Like I have a PlayStation 5 and I um I actually tried to call a game when I was playing Madden the other day, and then it went to overtime and I got irritated. But I always enjoy. It's always been a great outlet for me, even whether it
yeah
was through college or afterwards, and seeing what it's become, especially in the broadcasting world. Shout out to Jordan Carroll. She's a huge gamer, but then also works as a broadcaster for the Mavericks video game franchise.
yeah yeah. That's where we're headed, man. There's a lot. I did like a story like esports specifically. People are getting sponsored and paid thousands of dollars, sometimes maybe millions
Hmm.
that might be a stretch, but definitely thousands of dollars um, to sit all day and play in these tournaments and advance and go, before the pandemic, go all over the country, hell, even go all over the world, and they'll get these massive prizes,
Yeah.
and it's remarkable,
I mean, you had
So
somebody who won over $1 million, and they was like in third place playing. I think it was either Fortnite or Among Us or Overwatch, and I
yeah,
sit there like, wow.
yeah, man, that's where a lot of people are going. So it's a good opportunity for especially young broadcasters to dive into, especially broadcasters of color. Tap into that because that's something that's only going to get exponentially bigger, especially during these times when you can't, be around people.
Hmm. Now you went ultimately settled on, well, not even say settled. You went to Syracuse, a dream school for a
Yeah.
lot of people. It was for myself. Then I realized I probably didn't take my grade. Well, I was average, like 3.1 in high school, but it
Okay.
was also cold up there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really cold. Um, yeah, it's really cold, and that's the only reason I went there is
Hmm.
because of the Newhouse School, which, as you know, is arguably one of the top communication schools in the country. Because
Absolutely.
beyond that, there is nothing there.
Okay.
Like there is nothing. That is the quintessential college town. You have your sports teams, Syracuse basketball and Syracuse football, but it's really a basketball town. And then Dinosaur Barbecue, which is a famous spot over there. Other than that, there's nothing to do. That's why I was like one of the top party schools. When I was there, I don't know where it ranks now, but when I was there, we got ranked like number one party school, and even I was like a little skeptical. I think Arizona State, they have some on us, and maybe some other schools, but yeah, like I went there, and it was some of the best 4 years of my life. Yeah, I look back on that time very fondly.
Now, what was your I guess what was your favorite moment being there? Especially you in one of the best, if not like you say, if not the best broadcasting school in the nation. What was your fondest memory there?
My fondest memory, oh, I would say, mm, that's a somebody asked me this earlier, but uh, I would have to say the when we beat West Virginia, 2011. I think it was November, and it was the nationally televised game, and I had just gotten on the team a few games earlier as a walk on, and nobody gave us a shot. Like West Virginia came in all braggadocious and arrogant, thinking they were gonna whoop up on us. Geno Smith, Stedman Bailey. I think Tavon Austin was there as well, um, and we whipped their behind, like destroyed them 49-23. And I just remember that feeling of like invincibility or like greatness, just an elite high of, I'll say, there was a great sense of euphoria
Mm.
uh, during that moment, and people coming up to you like saying, "Yo, good game," and everything like that. Yo, y'all really did that because they were. I forget. I think they were ranked like 15th in the nation, but that was probably one of my proudest moments. Uh, and then when I crossed as a member of Iota Phi Theta fraternity incorporated, also that was something that I always will will hold up in high regard because we chartered a chapter on Syracuse, and that's something that nobody can ever take away from me and my line brother. So those two moments really stick out. Like it wasn't even about broadcasting. Uh, yeah, those moments were the ones that really took me over the top.
Okay. Now, how was you able to balance, well, land and balance those internships while in college? Because I think for a lot of students, it can be troubling. You're trying to do your schoolwork, trying to find these internships, go to these internships during the summer, and some of them during the school year. How was you able to do that?
Well, it's funny because they recommended, so fresh after my freshman year, we had been told that yeah, you're not going to get an internship. Going into your sophomore year, they won't offer that. So I worked at Federal Home Loan Banks in San Francisco, but like the DC location. Um, and and then my sophomore year, I interned at ESPN 980, and I was like a production assistant, basically helping with uh, music playlist and production and ideas for content as far as what the talent should talk about. So it wasn't really hard to balance the. I'll say this: I didn't have any internships like during the school year that
Okay.
interfered with my schoolwork and things of that nature. It was pretty. The only thing that I had to balance was my schoolwork, relationships, and football. When I was on the team, those
Mhm.
were the most significant challenges. But as far as yeah, internships, affecting me during the school time. No, that's not something that I had to deal with. If anything, I didn't get enough internships because of football and where my head was at times. Like yeah, football took away some opportunities, but I don't regret it. Like I was gonna be up for I think an internship in for the Olympics. I forget which Olympics it was, but they had openings for students at Syracuse to um, get internships. If you were good enough,
Mhm.
and that would have been one heck of an experience. But yeah, the internships I didn't have any problem, when it came to balancing them and schoolwork.
Now you played football there, and still was able to get into the broadcast field. Did you? How did you balance that? Because I know a lot of times you'll have students who are reporters, usually reporting on the sports, but you were playing. So did you only do like? Did you work for like the school newspaper or anything like that?
I was involved with, so I did obviously the broadcast journalism curriculum, where you have, you know, TV reporting and, broadcast news production, all that stuff. But outside of that, I joined the student TV station, Citrus TV, which is, highly regarded in the around the country as far as like student run TV stations. And I started that my freshman year. I didn't get on the team until my sophomore year, but I still did like behind the scenes work. So I just work, you know how it is. You work
Mhm.
your way up, you start behind the scenes, and then, as time goes on and people see, how you're progressing and what you're good at and what you're not good at, then you get more opportunities and graduate, so to speak, to the more elevated positions, in front of the camera if that's something that you want. And it was it was hard. Like because that was a demanding commitment, and then also having to deal with football, and then at the time I was in a committed relationship, so there are all these different factors at work, and you got to figure out how to balance and how to juggle all of them. It's funny that year, I think I got my best GPA that year. Like I made the Big East All Academic uh, team that year before we moved to the ACC.
Mhm.
I think I took like 17 credits, uh, which is a lot for me. And
That's a
yeah,
lot for anybody.
yeah, it was 17 credits. But it was weird because it was like, I forget which class I took, because it didn't feel like that at times because there was one class, I forget the name of it, but there was one class where we met, I think it was like once a week, but it was like for 2 hours, um, or 3 hours, something like that. So it took up a lot of time, but you only had to meet, once a week as opposed to like two or three times. But yeah, that they had tutors, they had tutors for the student athletes for the well, they had tutors for the, college players because nothing they care about, the athlete more than the student and um at the university. But
Mhm.
yeah, there were a lot of resources that I had at my disposal that I took advantage of to help me make sure I kept my grades up, and that's something my parents always preach. You don't get that. But you're shooting for A's, shooting for A's, A's and B's, man, and no C's and D's around here. But they just wanted me to do my best. But they held a high standard, so I knew what time it was.
Oh, of course. I mean, it
Especially,
pays.
especially when they're, you know, I was fortunate enough to have them, pay for the tuition, and then I also had a scholarship from Newhouse, a partial scholarship. But yeah, when they got all that money invested, you want to make sure you're making them look good.
I'm glad you brought that up because shout out to your parents and for doing that, and shout out to you because I've seen so many cases where parents pay for their children's tuition and the children take it for granted. What was it in you? I mean, if you don't mind, what was it in you to prevent you from doing that? Like, where did you
Uh,
find your drive from?
I think that's something that was ingrained in me and my siblings, from the time that I can remember when we had schoolwork. Like my dad was the fifth African American Rhodes Scholar. As I told you, went to Harvard. My mom was at UCLA. She was on her way to getting her PhD in that. Before she had to change some things. So we knew what type of we knew the expectations.
Mhm.
And for me, I didn't want to be mediocre at anything. So despite, all the maybe different temptations and extracurriculars that you could get into, I knew I had to focus on my work, on my academic work in order to make sure they were proud. And the biggest thing was just, graduating. Like obviously I wanted to graduate, with the highest GPA possible, but I didn't want to let them down. And even though there was some, how to put it, would be some times where maybe I would focus more on, extracurriculars when it came to my career and maybe not put as much work into some other courses that were not related to broadcast. I still knew how to work the system to my advantage where I'd be able to have a good, respectable GPA and then also, get the most out of my professional development to prepare me for my career.
I want to take a quick minute to talk about mental health. As you all know, we are living in unprecedented times, whether it's the racial pandemic or the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, I want to introduce you to Hope Again Counseling Services, where transformation begins. Hope Again provides help for children, adolescents, adults, family, and couples. So give them a call at 410-698-8442 or visit them on the web at yourhopeagain.com to book your appointment. If you are willing to believe, you will begin to achieve, and ultimately, Hope Again Counseling Services can help you receive all that is meant for you. That's amazing. If you get a chance, could you ask your parents if they have a handbook to raising success? Look, as a father, I always ask a lot of questions, and I have great children. Both of them are
Yeah.
doing well in school, which I'm blessed, but I never take that for granted, And I'm like,
Yeah.
I always ask questions because there's no handbook on parenting. It's always like
No, no, it is not, man.
maybe somebody wrote one.
Yeah, we gotta see if it's a local bookstore or something.
I know,
Uh,
right?
yeah,
But
but no, man, it's funny because like it doesn't, you have to work. They had to work with each of us. My older brother, my younger sister, because we all learn differently, all got different personalities.
Mhm.
And I just happened to be the one, I just wanted to prove people wrong, because there's a lot of doubt that people cast on me, throughout my life, and I wanted to uh, I wanted to shine. I didn't want to be, like I said, didn't want to be mediocre, and I understood well the part where I differentiated from my parents was the linear model, as far as, yeah, you go to school, you get a degree, then you get a sustainable job, you get married and you have a family. I was like, well, the GPA is important, but it's not that important, because when it comes to my field, it's about the experience that you have. So I was able to work that balance pretty well. I didn't succeed all the time, but I was able to work that balance pretty well during my college career to get what I need to get done.
And that's true. I tell people I've never been asked my GPA. And granted, I've done, more like behind the scenes work. You're obviously
Right.
on camera, but I've never been asked, "Hey, so what was your GPA in school?" When I see college students like really bothered by it, I'm like, not saying don't do well, but don't let it consume you as you
Right.
try to, move into this field.
Yeah. Perfectly said. Don't let it consume you, because you will drive yourself crazy if you do that.
Yeah. Now, before going to New York, you've traveled Wisconsin, DC. Um,
Yeah.
the experience, a lot of people would love to be able to pick exactly where they're going fresh out of college, but you were willing to make those moves. Can you just talk about that?
Well, I tell you what, I didn't. You talk about, people have the pick of the litter. They can choose where they want to start. I didn't want to start out in, Wausau, Wisconsin. That wasn't something I envisioned, when I graduated. I knew I was
Mhm.
going to have to go to a small market, but you know, that turned out to be, one of the best experiences, one of the most rewarding um, experiences that I've had, just to get my feet wet and set the foundation up for my broadcasting career. Because I had a offer from a station in West Lafayette, Indiana, um, and I had to choose between those two. And Wisconsin was the better deal, because they offered me a weekend sports anchor spot. Indiana job was offering me, like, you'll be the number three person, and then plus the Wisconsin job, they offered well, they were heavily on the Packers. Like, they poured a lot of resources into that. So we going to, NFL games, every week, during the season. And then also you have the Wisconsin Badgers, who were really good at football and basketball during my time there. So getting that experience was, invaluable. Like, I went to the Final Four. I went to the Sweet 16, by myself, Brian, 4 weeks on the job. 4 weeks on the job.
Wow.
They sent me by myself. It was like, yeah, you got to be a producer, you got to be an editor, you got to be a cameraman, you got to be the reporter, right?
Mhm.
And they had faith in me. And at that point, there was the time where I missed my deadline once, um, because I didn't prepare well enough, and I didn't want to say, hey, basically, the Wisconsin Badgers had practice that ran up close to the time that I was supposed to do my live hit. And what was unfortunate is I didn't feel like I could say, "Hey, it's going to be a tight call, so maybe we should push this down, to the B block or the C block." I just felt like I can't tell them, "Hey, I'm not able to do this," and I ended up missing my deadline because of that, because of my pride, and I had to take a step back. Like, at that point, it's like, "Yo, are you ready for it? Are you going to be able to succeed in the broadcast industry? Like, is this for you? Either you're going to fall flat on your face here, or you're going to rise up to the occasion and do what the heck needs to be done." And once I gathered myself and took everything in, never missed a deadline, for my on my end, like, outside of, like, technical reasons, like if its CPU wasn't working, never missed a deadline, after that. So yeah, I had a lot of great experiences there, and then I went to DC, obviously, and I was part time doing, feature stories, feature sports stories, and human interest stories with, a sports twist. That was like kind of my forte. That was the genre, so to speak, that they put me in, and uh, I gained a lot of knowledge and wisdom during that time, like how to create, the best possible story and be conversational. That 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 time in DC was was really something else. And
And
plus, it's back in my hometown. So working for a station that I used to watch sometimes, and to work with some of the legends there, like Bruce Johnson, who's been there like 40 plus years, to be on
mhm.
the same set as him. And I grew up watching that man. Come on, man. Come on. Come on. God is real. God is
Amen.
real. All right.
Amen, man. Now, what was it like being home in that sense? You like you said, you get to do the human interest stories, you get to work with the people, but what about like your family life? Or is this an excitement? Are people hoping you kind of stay there long term? What was that like?
Everybody, like my family, and then my extended family, close friends, everybody wanted me to succeed. They were so happy, that I was able to produce work that would be on, top 10 market TV station, and it really helped me um, do even better work because I knew that they were watching. I knew that they wanted the best for me, so that motivated me to, be even better when it came to my stories. And that's where I needed to be at that time,
Mhm.
because I had lost my dad to pancreatic cancer, like right before I left
Oh man, I'm
my
sorry to hear
Wisconsin
that.
job. Yeah, thank you. And then so it was like a really uh how I put it. It was really traumatic and trying year and a half that I stayed in DC, but I needed to be at home to have that type of support from my mom and other places and other people, and then yeah, like I was able to once again rise to the occasion, and that's um that's part of why I'm here today talking to you.
Yeah, man. And then you go to New York now. How hard was it to make that transition, not professionally but personally? Like you said, you wanting to be there for your mom and your family. How hard was it making that transition to New York? I mean, obviously it's a great opportunity. Anybody who knows you knows like that's where you belong because you're one of the best in the business. But how hard was that from a personal standpoint, if you don't mind me asking?
It was, I'll put it like this. uh it was a time that I felt so relieved and overwhelmed with um, joy and sadness. Joy because I had been working so hard to find something full time, like for over a year and a half. And during that year and a half, at one point I wanted to quit the business, because I just didn't have that drive anymore because I had, lost my dad, who was like my number one fan. And so that was like the sadness part, but sadness and joy together because I was able to finally get somewhere, that I was going to, be featured as a prominent voice, and I wasn't going to be looked at as um, I guess, a role player, so to speak, somebody that they didn't believe in. That's kind of how I felt at the station in DC. So when I got that call, look, well, I had two offers. I had offer from SNY and then offer from Cleveland. When I got both offers and I had to decide where I was going to go, it was like, yo, you put in all this work. you pushed through it. You were able to overcome, your fears and your, insecurities about whether you belong in the business anymore. And now you've got an opportunity to go to New York, number one market in the country, and then you got an opportunity to work for an NBA team. Like that just reinforced the the notion that everything that I did, paid off. So it wasn't really hard from a personal standpoint because, you know, my mom and I had wanted me to find something where I would be a full-time participant, a full-time employee, and be valued. So it was like a huge dream, a huge huge dream come true. When I got that call and I made a decision to go to New York because I knew I was better than I knew that I needed to go somewhere else that I would be valued. And I knew that I had served my time in DC and the
Mhm.
next chapter was New York. So yeah, it wasn't too hard personally. I was like, yeah, it's about time. But it was on God's time.
Amen. Amen. And you know, the thing is, man, you being faithful to him and honoring your parents. That's why
Right,
you reward it. And it's always good. I always love connecting with other believers because we can have these conversations and not be ashamed of it.
right.
Now,
Yeah,
New York, man, it's it's the Mecca,
right,
Manhattan. You getting an opportunity, and you like you said, being able everything you thought, from being a sophomore, getting cut
right,
to now, this is your Michael Jordan story in a different sense because now you get an opportunity, like you said, to be a star player. And I'm gonna say a star player. You said somebody featured, you
right.
know. What's the nerves like, your first month there? Because now you, like you said, number one market in the world.
Yeah. The nerves, uh so the first night that I did a show, I think I was more nervous like leading up to the day that I knew I was going to anchor. So I anchor on a Sunday, and that night the Jets get absolutely embarrassed by the Buffalo Bills. Like even Matt Barkley came in, and it was a really disappointing effort from the Jets. And the first time I felt like I was I was born. I won't say born for this, but I felt like I was meant to be there. Like I'll rephrase. When I stepped onto that set and I did the highlights, I came up on screen. I felt like I belonged. Right? You obviously got nerves. You want to make sure I had the place where the nerves came from were directly related to got all this pressure. You wanted a few, well, the only black man full time employee on air. People are looking at you, to fail. Other like coworkers may not be happy they brought on this brother, um, and just the internal burden that you put on yourself as a black man in a white male dominated industry. Like I can't mess up. Then I'm like, I want to make my father proud. Then obviously my mom. So that's where the nerves came from. But as far as what I was capable of, my skill set, I knew that I could do it. It's just a matter of putting it into action and getting. Once I got that first one out of the way, it's like, yeah, you know, I belong. That this is where I'm supposed to be. So the first month, I didn't really have too much nerves of whether I should be there or not. It was just a matter of I know the margin for error is so much smaller for me, so I didn't want to mess up. But I remember one night specifically, it was winter. We had winter meetings for the Mets, and Steve Gelbs, our Mets field reporter, is anchoring a remote show from Las Vegas or wherever the winter meetings were in 2018. And he tosses it back to me like, now we go back to Chris Williamson in New York. And when he said that, like, yo, like I'm in New York, you know what I'm saying? Like, he said it was like my full name, and that's where I kinda had my, I guess, aha moment, or like, "Yo, you know, I'm here, and I'm doing what I need to do." So, that was really cool.
Man, that's amazing. Like, I I love hearing these stories, man. Um,
Yeah.
one of the fun things you did this during I believe it was during the pandemic was the video you did, the post game, or
Oh,
maybe it was
yeah.
before that.
Yeah, it was a little bit, yeah, it was like, I think it was, like, right before, like, we did a few, and then, yeah, with the pandemic happened. Yeah.
How did you come up with that idea? Because I thought that was genius.
Yeah, so honestly, I I'll tell you a funny story. I was in Wisconsin my last year, and I traveled to the Badgers game, one game, and I just imagined, okay, wouldn't it be cool if we had a post game press conference, for sports anchors. So once everybody left, all the media and the players and coaches left, I stayed around in Madison, Wisconsin, at the press conference area, and I set up the camera, and then I got up on the press conference stage, and then I rehearsed and performed the lines that I'd come up with, and then I put it together with some music, and I didn't end up publishing it until, like, I think in 2018 or whatever.
Mhm.
So I wanted to bring that back. I seen Joey Mulinaro, who's a really good comedian, and I'd seen he was doing like post show date interviews and all that,
Right,
and
yeah.
so it just re-inspired me, reinvigorated my spirit to be like, yo, I need to pick up where I left off as far as my post game press conferences, and so from there, like, that's the origin of the story. I always thought it would be cool to create something like that, and then
Mm.
we kept doing different segments and takes, and people seemed to like it. So I kept doing them, but yeah, it came from a really pure place.
I enjoyed it, man, so much to the point I never told nobody this, but so well, I'm kind of semi-retired, but I played drums,
Okay,
for a
I used to
gospel
play
group.
drums too.
Oh,
Oh, nice.
nice. And yeah, I was playing in March was our 16th anniversary. And the reason why I say semi-retired because going into that anniversary, I said this was it. This was my farewell. And then the group manager passed it over. This is my self-adopted pops, I call him. He passed it
Okay,
over to his son, my self-adopted brother. And I was like,
yeah,
I don't want to leave yet because I don't know how the direction going now. Cause
yeah,
it was like if I felt it run its course, but then things happen, whatever. But the pandemic happened. And I remember thinking, I was like, maybe I should do a post anniversary presser. You know,
yeah.
I just didn't have like nobody set it up, and I was like, oh, I ain't gonna be able to pull it off. But I had to let you know that like that had inspired me. The
uh,
thought, it triggered a thought, man.
that's hilarious. That's great, man. That would been funny.
Yeah,
Yeah, actually, I would get a kick out of that. Yeah, you should do it. I mean, yeah, you should. Yeah, that don't let that idea go to waste.
yeah,
I
maybe
would
the
I would
next.
love to see it. Yeah, maybe when pandemic's over and all that. But yeah, that's got potential. I definitely see potential in that enterprise and that concept. So
Yeah.
yeah,
But real quick, NABJ man, it's obviously
yeah,
where we met. Can you just talk
right.
about what the organization means to you? And like I said, it's one of those organizations where you come in, if it's your first time going to a conference, you're learning so much, and then in a snap of a finger, whether it's the second time or even in that first time going, find yourself being somebody who's motivating somebody else. But can you just talk about like what the organization means to you?
It means so much because without it, I wouldn't have met my mentor, Vic Carter, WJZ in Baltimore.
Yeah, man.
You know what I'm saying?
That's like my
He a
childhood
real one.
hero.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, they love that man.
Hmm.
down in Baltimore, and then also Darren Haynes, who used to work at ESPN, now he works at WSA 9 in
Yep.
DC, the sports director, and that's obviously where I worked, as you know, under him, which was incredible that it worked out that way. But yeah, the organization offers so many resources and people that are genuinely interested in your growth and development as a journalist and also as a human being. Like obviously, you know, we're not going to talk about some of the warts of the organization, but when it because I like to look at I'm just saying because obviously
Mhm.
every organization isn't perfect, but for sake of the conversation, I'll just keep it to the great things. They want you to succeed. They give you um, so many opportunities to learn and take a step back to see how you can change your approach or how you can work on your voice, literally and figuratively, to get the best product possible, to market yourself the best way, whether it's resume writing or on camera presence, TV writing, the whole 9 yards. Like there are a lot of good people in that organization, um who are looking out for you, and you just have to find, not everybody's going to be a mentor, not everybody's going to be a mentee, but you just have to find that right partnership, um with those people. And when you hit the right one, you'll know it. And then also the peers aspect is wonderful as well, because they're really the people you can learn the most from, because you're going to be working, moving up the ranks, with them, and they have all these wonderful innovative ideas that you can um, appreciate, and maybe take something from one person and take something from another person, and XYZ, and then you blend it into your own, um, because there's so many incredible, smart, um, fascinating journalists, producers, photographers, the whole 9 yards, that are in NABJ. So yeah, me NABJ means a lot.
Yeah, man, it's definitely a blessing. I'm hoping and praying we can all get together in 2022 because,
I know.
hey, man, that's gonna be an event.
Yeah, man,
Just
that's gonna be crazy. I mean, yeah, I'll
you
just
see how
say
we act when we don't see each other for 1 year. So in that case, it will be 3 years,
3 years,
man.
bro. It's gonna be, yeah, it's gonna be wild. Like we thought Miami was wild. Come
Mhm.
on, man. Las Vegas will be, yeah, a movie. That's all I'll say. It'll be a movie, and I just hope people can stay employed after the after the conference.
Yeah,
I'll
I
be
mean,
chilling though. I'll be
yeah,
chilling though. I'm about that business.
I feel
You
you.
get caught up in that, and it can go
Mm,
sideways. But yeah, if you buy your business, you still have your fun. But if you buy your business, it's still a wonderful, wonderful experience.
exactly, like you said, balance.
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
yeah.
balance for sure.
And before we get out of here, man, the title of the show is called "Breaking Through the Glass Ceilings." So, when did you break through the glass ceiling? I know you mentioned that part where the gentleman said, "Now we have Chris Williamson from New York," but was that the moment, or did you have another moment where you realized, like, I'm here, I did what I set out to do, and I'm good at what I'm doing?
Great question. Um, Great question. You know, I feel like that moment for me came. Uh, it wasn't well. That moment of, yeah, I'm here. I'm good at what I do. It didn't happen in New York. It happened in DC, and the reason why is because I had been trying to find my groove, ever since I lost my dad, and I just didn't know. when or if that was ever going to happen to get my mojo back. And I remember doing a story on a phenom basketball player who overcame depression and suicidal thoughts, um, to realize his basketball dream. And you got to understand, during when I'm doing this story, I'm also um, dealing with depression. So it's kind of like a um, therapeutic experience for me, because he's telling me about his experiences, and then I'm able to empathize with that.
Hmm.
And when I did that story, like, I had all these different camera angles. I brought the GoPro out, multiple cameras. I used my own camera in addition to the work camera. Um, had all this, really good music that I put under the story. When I finished it and I look back on it, I was like, yeah, like, I'm back. I'm back. Like how Steph Curry was like, yeah, I'm back, baby.
Yeah.
After he got injured a few years ago, whatever it was, that was my moment. Like, yeah, I'm back. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
my, Darren, affirmed me on that, and so did my boss. But that was the moment where, I knew that I was gonna be all right. Like, I had a lot of self doubt before then, but when I completed that story and aired it, I said, yeah, I'm here to stay. And that's probably the story that I'm most proud of. I didn't win any awards or anything. I submitted it for an Emmy. It didn't get nominated, but I don't give a damn, because I know the work that I poured into that, and what it meant to the kid. At the time, he was a kid. Um, what it meant to him and his family. And so when you see that, like, yeah, job's accomplished.
Yeah, that right there is priceless. Right there, when you can honor somebody through your work when they give you your time and you make them
Yeah.
smile and their family. That right there is priceless, man. Before we get out of here, let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, so they can find me on Twitter at C Williamson 44. Yeah, once again, C Williamson 44 on Twitter, then on Instagram at C Williamson TV9. Yeah, that's where you can find all my opinions and takes, on the sports world, and the intersection of sports and social justice as well. So yeah, those are the two places where I'm most active.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. He is Chris Williamson. Make sure y'all give him a follow. I promise you will be entertained, but most importantly, you will learn a lot and get all your information that you need. Chris, man, thanks, man. I really appreciate you coming on, bro.
Thank you, brother. I'm humbled that you saw me as a good candidate to be on the show, and I hope it wasn't boring, and that I gave people something to think about, and hope I left them feeling inspired and motivated.
Oh,
So yeah.
oh, yes, sir. I can tell you definitely will be inspired by this one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Chris Williamson. Chris is genuinely one of those good people, and honored is the word I can describe to have had him on the show this week. Next week, I'm honored to have a fellow Baltimorean by the name of Miss Taylor Doc Walker. She comes on as she is someone who puts on for the city through her writing. So make sure you subscribe to the show if you haven't done so. That way you will not miss that episode. Remember, folks, do not let anybody set up a ceiling that you can't break through. This podcast is brought to you by B Waters Productions, and the music is produced by Hypno Beats, who you can find on Instagram at hypno_beats with a Z.